Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, WennSoft, for allowing us to be part of your ISV Days series. My name is Mike. I head up business development for DynamicPoint, and today we're going to be looking at creating a portal using an Office 365 SharePoint site. So we have a lot to get through, so with no further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, the agenda for today. Step one, we're going to look at why you would want to make a portal. And that includes the objectives as well as the benefits for doing so. And then we're going to move on to how to make a portal. We're going to look at it from an ingredient perspective and what are the ingredients that typically go into a portal, whether it be customer or vendor facing, and why we want to use or what the benefit of using Office 365 to create that portal would be. Step three, we're going to go into a demonstration, cover some basics, customer case studies, as well as take it a little bit more advanced and look at some of the automation features that could be achieved in creating a portal as well. And then we're going to close it out. What a portal is not. Is a portal right for me? Where do I go from now? Just things to consider and leave you with. All right, let's start with the benefits. Why would I want to make a portal? Whether it be customer or facing, a lot of these benefits are common to each of those use cases, but they're pretty obvious, I think, if you look at them. One is self-service, right? The idea of a portal is that as opposed to customers maybe emailing me or calling my organization, I'm going to put that on a site for them, of course, and the portal, and they could go go get their own answers whenever they want to. Savings, hopefully by not relying on internal resources to answer these questions or do whatever we're exposing on the portal, we're going to save some money. Increased efficiency. Improved relations. A lot of times customers are demanding, this feature, or they expect it. They want to be able to go look at their service cases online or pay invoices or whatever it is that we're going to enable for them to do on that portal. Streamlining processes, obviously just trying to make things overall more streamlined as well as efficient. And then information collaboration. So those are the benefits. So let's stop and shift gears here and look at the ingredients. And as you can tell, we're sort of using the baker analogy here in that, of course, we use ingredients to make something. And in this case, it's no different. These are the ingredients that are included in a portal. And the ingredient sort of depends on the party. There's really two people that matter when it comes to a portal. And the first is you, the company, right? What type of business are you, and what is the information that would be beneficial to host on a portal? If I'm looking at, if you're using a service module of WennSoft, for example, then service cases and things like that would be applicable. If you're using job costs, then sharing that type of information. If you just want people to place orders, then it's typically more around sales orders and things of that nature. So the first part of it, of course, is what type of organization are you? Are you just a service organization and that's your focus? Are you also selling things? Or you want people to look at inventory? So all of that matters, of course. And then the second person who's very important to the portal is your audience, right? Whether or not it's customer or vendor facing, what is it that they are expecting to see on the portal? What would give them benefit? What are the things that they currently have questions on that they can't go get that information on their own? So both of those are going to be important factors, of course, and what ultimately goes into creating this portal. All right, so let's look at these ingredients a little bit more in depth. And all of these are sort of common regardless, again, if it's customer or vendor facing. All of these are just important aspects of what builds or goes into creating a portal. The first and foremost is the self-service aspect. What type of information am I sharing? And what is my real business reason for standing up this portal? Account information, service call creation, invoice history, where does this data reside and how am I going to expose it in the portal? Documents, maybe I want to have a central repository for storing and sharing documents. Community and social features, such things as discussion boards, forums, surveys, customer satisfaction, knowledge bases, etc. Data, right? Dashboards, KPIs, performance indicators, things like that that I also want to expose on the portal. Feedback and survey forms. Workflow and business automation, maybe by doing something on the portal like looking at an order or creating a service case, I want to generate a notification or create a task or send an alert or call someone, etc. All that could be very important. As well as security, how do users log in? How do they manage their account? Is it secure? By putting anything out there on the web, of course, I have to be cognizant of the security impact. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, our whole focus is going to be using Office 365 to build this portal. So now we're going to look at the Office 365 features, knowing the ingredients of a portal and say, hey, do these align, right? Like what does Office 365 get me in making sure that those ingredients are fulfilled? So this is a little bit of a logo test, but we're going to go through each of these, right? So user authentication and security. If you guys are familiar with this logo, it's actually a newer one. It's the Intra ID, otherwise known as Azure Active Directory. And that is what an Office 365 SharePoint portal uses for security. So obviously it's very secure. It's an important aspect for Microsoft, right? And they put a lot of focus in that. Document Center, Community, and Social is going to be SharePoint. SharePoint's going to be the front end to the portal, and it's also going to be where we're storing such things as documents and a lot of the social features that we're going to expose. Dashboards and analytics, this is the Power BI logo. Feedback and survey forms, this is Microsoft Forms. Workflow and business automation, this is of course Power Automate. And the last logo, you're probably not as familiar with, it's right down here, right next to our name, that's us. So adding our app to Office 365, which is entirely an Office 365 based app, allows me to integrate that data from other aspects or other systems. And usually the system that we're talking about is of course WennSoft modules within Dynamics GP. But it's not just limited to that, but of course that's going to be our focus today. So my conclusion of all this is if you look at what Office 365 is providing you, which most all of our customers have already bought, it's pretty well stocked, right? You already have most everything you need here, and this framework is there for you. So if you were going to create a portal, why wouldn't you use all these things, right? You've already brought them in, you're already paying the licenses, etc. So let's look at a portal. So let's go to a demonstration, and I'm going to leave PowerPoint here. And I'm going to start with a service portal. If you're not using the service modules, don't worry, I will absolutely show you other use cases. But this seems to be a fairly typical one for our WennSoft customers. And before I go through the details here, what we're starting with is a SharePoint site, right? So this is a SharePoint extranet, and we are sharing it with these external users, whether it be customer or vendor facing, and I'll show you examples of both of those. If you're unaware, you could share these sites with this concept of guest users, and it doesn't cost you any additional licensing. So that's the good news, is by bringing more people onto these sites, you're not really increasing your licensing with Microsoft because external guest accounts are included free of charge. So let's talk a little bit about the layout here. So this is my service portal. I'm showing service calls, appointments, contracts, equipment, paying invoices, a discussion board, customer satisfaction survey. If I click over here, I can manage my company information. I'm also sharing some specific documents that are being filtered again for this user that's logged in. And that's something that I should probably pause and say really quick. These portals are secure, right? If I were to go to this site in a incognito mode, of course it's going to ask me to log in, right? It's going to ask for that authentication. These aren't just public sites that everyone could access. I have a integrated Power BI report here, again, showing data specific to that user, in this case, a quality analysis dashboard. So that is the look and feel of what ultimately, this one, of course, is customer facing, my customers would see when they logged into my portal. I'm going to stop and talk a little bit about look and feel, right? So if you don't like this design, I'm not offended. You know, Microsoft has this thing called the lookbook. And if you go look at examples, you're going to see all these different layouts for portal sites. And you could say, hey, this one looks better to me, and you could just add it to your tenant. So if you don't like the look and feel of my portals, I created them all so they all sort of look the same. You know, let it be known that there is definitely different options for you out there on how you want these portals to look. Okay, so let's go back to my service portal. So let's start clicking on some of these things and highlighting the features, right? So let's first of all go in the service calls. And you're going to see this working on it very briefly. And what that's doing is calling the service calls for the login user and showing them, of course, right? So I'm only seeing the service cases and calls that are associated to my account, to my customer. And in this case, you're going to see I have different features I could do. I can edit, right? So I could look at an existing service case, and potentially I want to give them the ability to edit something like the type of call or the resolution, etc. I could print it. Printing it, actually what that does is calls an underlying WennSoft report. In this case, when I call the print, I have it associated with a call summary report. So what this is allowing a customer to do is log onto this portal and generate their own call summary reports. We did not create this report, right? We're of course just allowing a user to invoke it from this portal such that they could, again, in an effort of self-service, generate it themselves. So we're really just passing parameters. If I go click on any of these, that report's going to change because of course I'm clicking on a different service case, and it's going to of course bring up the data specific to that service case. You also see I have the ability to create a service case here. Creating a service case on the portal should be a simple process, right? So in here, you can see I have very limited fields that I'm asking them for, and they could simply create a service case. And, you know, essentially that was it. I mean, you could configure it to add whatever fields you want. For the sake of my demo, I kept it really simple. And that's going to trigger not only the service call creation directly in the WennSoft module, but it's going to kick off some workflow. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on the things that I could trigger when someone does something like create a service call. So that was service calls. Other things, again, every example that I'm showing you is really just an example. We could hook up to any of the data, you know, either in WennSoft or the ERP or any ERP for that matter. But here's some other examples. If I go look at my appointments, again, being filtered for the authenticated user. Here you see I don't have the ability to create an appointment. I'm just showing them, but I could go in here, look at the technician assigned to it, the actual hours, estimated hours, really whatever data I want to show, that's all just configuration. Maintenance contracts, again, just pulling in more information. I'm looking at the assigned technician, the amount, the total on the contract, equipment that is assigned to my location. So this is only showing certain equipment that's been assigned. In this case, I've enabled the ability to delete it. I don't know if that's a great use case that I would allow users to remove equipment from their site, but it is a feature, right? So I could absolutely do that if I wanted to expose it. Probably not a great use case, but you get the idea. And then invoice payment. So this is showing the invoices directly, again, for this user. And what we've done in this case is integrated it with a payment service. So our portal has integrations with different payment providers such as Stripe or Authorize.net, PayPal, things like that. And if I were to click on any of these, what you're going to see here is actually going to take that invoice and pass it to the payment service. And then if I pay now, I could go ahead and put my credit card information directly in on this site. Of course, I don't want to pay a couple $1,000s, so I'm not going to do it. Other things I have here, a discussion board. Maybe I want to have a discussion board. My customers could, put questions. I could respond to them. I could, reply. I could do praise, all the things that come. This is actually coming from the Yammer integration, by the way. So SharePoint has this Yammer integration, and I could build discussion boards and things like this and bring it directly into the portal. Customer satisfaction survey. If I click on this guy, It's going to bring up my satisfaction survey. How long have you been using our product? I won't bore everyone with filling it out. I like yours, right? How often do you use it? Anyway, when they fill all this out, they could submit it. You could also proactively send this to them. After maybe I created that service case, I wanted to actually trigger this and then send them the survey saying how well did we do, or maybe when I close the service case, right? That would be a better example of how well did we perform. But this is just using, again, Microsoft Forms that has been embedded into this SharePoint portal. Okay, so that's the service portal. Let's look at one more example, focus on WennSoft modules. This is the job cost portal, right? So this is less focused on the service modules and more on the job costing. So the integrations are going to be a little different, right? It's going to be job status. I'm not going to print a call summary report in this case. If I click the print button, it's going to call a percentage of complete report. So you can see the job percentages of complete. Of course, anything that we're rendering is being done as a PDF, so they could save it and print it and do whatever they want with it. I could drill into any of these. So in this case, I've enabled a view icon and I could look at all the details of where I am on the job. Invoices by cost category. You could go down here, start looking at various invoices, expand them, look at the cost codes associated to this invoice, drill into it. Notice I didn't put the print button on this one, but I absolutely could. Looking at all my detail. Subcontractors, change orders, etc. Right? So let's go look at change orders really quick. This one again is just a view. Actually, I take it back. I've enabled edit, as well as the ability to submit. What the submit icon is going to do is kick off a workflow associated to this. So if I wanted to have users not only review or create change orders, but maybe submit them for internal review, I could invoke workflows by using that functionality. So these are change orders, anything obviously showing the change orders associated to the job and the estimated cost and the manager. And then subcontractors, this one I'm just focusing, or featuring, I should say, our search functionality. Of course, you could do this with any of the data that I've been showing you, but if I were to put in, ABC here and click search, I would only see those subcontractors associated. In this case, my action icon is to attach a document. So on the previous one, you saw a submit. This is actually the ability to, upload something directly from my computer, in this case, to a contractor record, like maybe an agreement or an NDA or something like that. All right. So that gives you some overview of some of the more WennSoft focused features, such as services and jobs. If I were just to go look at like a customer portal, so let's just go look at a generic customer portal. This is less focused on the WennSoft modules. It's looking at things like sales orders, creating orders and invoices and service orders and things like that, creating returns. So as you could probably see here, the options for when I want to expose on the portal are fairly endless. And it really goes back to my previous point. It only matters if your customers would like to see it, right? So the things that you're exposing on the portal, of course, are really varied based off of what would benefit either your customers or your vendors. I also have a vendor portal here. In this one, I'm showing purchase orders, submitting invoices, viewing historical invoices. If I click on the open purchase orders here, again, querying it this time for the vendor as opposed to the customer, I have the ability to edit these, maybe acknowledge it, change delivery dates, update it, again, calling workflow. So this will, when I get to the automation section, we could talk about how this is kicking off workflows and approvals, or at the very least notifications telling someone that the delivery date has changed for a PO that I may be expecting. Okay, so let's go to some of the other aspects that we want to cover on the portal, and that is different automation options. So let's go ahead and share my PowerPoint again. So looking at workflow, I have one example that I'll just show you and talk about, and then the next we'll go actually demonstrate it. So this is a fairly typical workflow that we've seen in conjunction with WennSoft Service Management, and this is based off of an email going out to someone who's assigned to a service case, and maybe it's like a contractor, or maybe someone who is not going to get notification directly on their phone, but I want to go ahead and send them an email. So I have a workflow here that's checking on a periodic basis of work orders, those that are ordered and scheduled and completed. It's going to identify the contractor, and then it's going to send them an email, right? Simple workflow. This is going to use Power Automate. And here's the end result, right? It looks simple enough. This first one is a notification. It's scheduled for today. Reply to this email if you have any questions. And then this is the one that goes out after completion. So these are all being generated using Power Automate in conjunction with the workflow product. But as you can see, in addition to showing that data and exposing reports, we could begin using these workflows for automation. So let's walk through one together. I'm going to use our vendor onboarding as an example. It's a pretty simple workflow. It's 3 steps. I'm going to request a new vendor. I'm going to fill out a form to do so. The vendor is going to get an invitation and ask to update documentation. And then I'm going to have some internal review and approval. And then upon that acceptance, we will create that vendor and then send them an invitation to the portal. So let's go ahead and walk through that really quick. All right, so I'm on my vendor portal. This would only be available for an admin, of course, or someone who has the authority to request working with a new vendor. And as you can see here, I have it already filled out. I have my name and my email. So I kept it really simple. Of course, this is just a Microsoft form. I could add as many fields as I want. And that's it. So I've requested my new vendor that I'm going to work with. And what that is going to do is me, Mike, right, at DynamicPoint as a prospective vendor, is going to get an invitation. So if I were to open up my email here and drag it across, you could see it. It really, what this did is it kicked off a DocuSign envelope integration, and that has now sent me our standard onboarding packet. So if I click on this, it's going to take me into this vendor onboarding packet. And again, I will not bore you with me filling out these fields. I have my various things that I could fill out. I have some checklists here, some drop downs, etc., that I've included on the form, as well as the infamous W-9 that I need to collect from the vendor. I could also do it as an attachment if I don't want them to fill it out online. They could just upload one that they already have and then complete it. Simple example, right? Obviously, I'd probably want to get more data from them. But what that's going to do is kick off an internal workflow. So if I get off my email and go to my internal user, my demo account, what we're going to see here is I received a new request for a vendor, right? And there's a new one coming through. And what it has done is called this Power Automate approval action that I could approve or reject, as well as look at the completed form that I just filled out. So this would be more someone internally, like a contract administrator, a buyer, someone in procurement. And then by them approving or rejecting this looks good. It's going to move forward in the workflow and then send the vendor a notification saying, welcome to our portal, as well as actually going to onboard and create the vendor immediately. So the vendor will be created in the vendor management of the ERP. And then I'm going to get a notification. I made this really simple for the sake of demo. Obviously, I can make this prettier, but you're now a new vendor in our system. To access the portal, click the following link. So it basically shared the site with them and sent them an invitation automatically. So those are just some examples of business automation. Of course, you could take that wherever you want. There's a lot of options, but those are just some typical examples of how I could use a portal in conjunction with workflows to add more value by automating business processes. All right, let's go back to our slides here. Okay. If we're talking about what a portal is, we should also talk about what a portal is not. And these are things that, using SharePoint as a B2B extranet, it's just not really geared for. It's not really geared for e-commerce. It's not really geared for a shopping cart or an Amazon experience. You can see I could create orders and I could create service cases and things like that, but it's a much different experience than like adding items to a cart. It's not really tailored to that. It's more of, I want to present someone with a form, and then that's going to create the order. And it's not instant gratification. The best portals that we see are those that are the best thought out, that people put the most effort in laying out what it is that they want their customer or vendors to see, and then working to make sure that that functionality is intact and in sound and reliable data. So it's not something that I would suggest you just throw up really quick and say, hey, everyone, here's the portal. Usually the more effort you put into it, the more you get out of it. Is a portal right for me? They're best suited for B2B relationships, as we told. So business to business is really what Microsoft is targeting with these SharePoint extranets. Collaboration is key, right? Focus on the exchange of information, data reports, analytics, exchange of documents, things like that. Long-term customer vendor relationships. What I'm getting at there is if you're just going to do one transaction with a customer or vendor, there's probably not a ton of benefit of giving them a portal. But if your relationships are over a long period of time, bringing them onto a portal, providing a foundation for that interaction, you get to earn back the effort, right? And it's really geared towards more of those long-term relationships with customers or vendors. These, I promised some case studies, right? These are just some examples. So this happens to be an alcoholic beverage company that uses it for order entry and fulfillment amongst their distributors. This is a vendor portal for a media company. They're using it for vendor onboarding, W-9, collection and management. As you can see, I hid most of their names just for the sake of their own privacy. This portal right here we did for a customer is more geared towards fulfillment. Order entry, looking at packing slips, paying unpaid invoices, etc. This is, of course, a service portal, so it's more geared towards service call creation, equipment maintenance, contract management. And again, another customer portal, just looking at AR, jobs, sales, all things more financial oriented. So those are just some examples. Of course, you could use your imagination on how you would use these portals because there's really endless opportunity. Where do we go from here? I'll send out this presentation, but these included links to some Microsoft pages on building SharePoint portals and using SharePoint as an extranet, as well as our website. And then just personal reflection. Do you use Office 365? Would your business benefit from a portal? Would your customers or vendors benefit from a portal? So just the obvious questions that I think you really have to have in the back of your mind before you invoke on any type of project like this. So I've been focusing on our portal product. At DynamicPoint, we also have two others. We have an AP automation as well as an expense management. Both of those integrate with the WennSoft modules, but they're not the focus of today. It's just to make you aware that those also exist, but this has been our coverage for today's session. And that is it. I will hand it back over. And again, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you sticking with me.